Too often, we tie our value to titles, thinking the power to lead only comes with a fancy role. But what if losing that title is exactly what brings us closer to our purpose? Today, I'm welcoming back a very special guest, Chela Gage. She is talent and inclusion consultant and executive coach at Oli Strategies. Chela was one of the first leaders to join me on this podcast nearly 2 years ago, and I am so excited to have her back. In this conversation, we explore what happens when leadership is no longer defined by a job title and why real impact often begins outside of traditional roles. Chela's story is deeply personal, powerful and practical, from growing up in foster care to leading in the C-suite and now launching 1 million fosters. She reminds us that purpose doesn't have to come from position, it comes from within. This one left me really inspired, and I know it will do the same for you. If this conversation moves you, please share it with someone else who needs to hear it. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Now, let's dive into my wonderful conversation with Chela Gage. Hi, Chela. Welcome back to the All Inclusive Podcast.
So excited to be here. Thank you, Natasha.
Yes. Oh, I'm super excited for this conversation. It's been a long time coming. It's been a while since we last spoke. I'm so glad to have you back on the show. So for all of those that are listening, our new listeners that might not have been able to have an opportunity to tune into our previous episode, do definitely do that. For those that haven't listened to it before, it's really a great one. Can you give us a quick refresher on your background and your journey?
Yes. So, Chela Gage, my pronouns are she and her. I am the founder and chief people officer of Oli Strategies. My background, I've been blessed with 25 years of HR experience, and I started my career as an executive recruiter, recruiting for startups in Silicon Valley. And I've worked for companies, large organizations such as Nissan, Raytheon. I had a brief stint in retail with Reformation, which was so fun because I had a 50% off discount. That was amazing. And I just ended my role as the chief diversity officer for Starbucks. So all in all, my background is inclusive of talent, HR, DE&I, and now foraying into executive coaching.
Oh, that's awesome. It's definitely been a journey for you. So, I mean, the last time we did speak, you shared such powerful insights on leading through change and creating inclusive cultures. So, what's been on your heart and mind since then? Like, any new lessons, any reflections that you've gathered?
Oh my gosh, Natasha, yes. And there's so much that's changed, right? Like over the last 2 years, organizations have been, what I see organizations doing is struggling to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into their processes, their everyday policies and practices. And those who do it, those organizations are going to reap the benefits of having sustainable outcomes. And then I see organizations trying to figure out like what's their voice in this new environment and how do they stay afloat with their values and making sure that their employees understand why they're a part of the organization and why they should remain. So a lot is happening on the DEI market. And with everything happening in the executive orders, what's interesting is the HR and the DEI community has since come together. And what I see is a lot of us reaching out to each other. Hey, what are you doing? What's working for you? Like, what order are you paying attention to this time? Which one has had the most impact? Are you changing your language? What has worked well? What change management strategies? And so I love that the community is coming together to support each other. And I've found myself like reaching out and creating community. I'm a part of the Chief Network, and once a month, I host a DEI and CHRO monthly meetup, and we connect with each other. We have guests come in, and then we do a roundtable on what else is working. And then we can't forget, in the last couple of years, we've had 2 Beyonce concerts. I just came from my last one.
Love me some Beyonce. I'm so jealous. So jealous that you've got to be able to see her. I have still yet to nab a ticket. But it's definitely on my bucket list of things that I need to, and I hope to
We
be
have
able
to
to
make that.
do.
Yeah, we have to make
Yeah.
that.
I know. But I mean, you are so right. And I love that you have highlighted this collaboration, this community build. Because I think there used to be a couple of years back when we were talking about inclusive cultures and inclusion that yes, partnering with your HR team was definitely something that you need to do. But it was still quite a distant
Mhm.
thing, right? So you were either doing DEI under HR or your organization had a kind of a separate DEI department, and you kind of tapped on the shoulder of HR every now and again, but that was about it. Whereas now, yeah, I totally can see that there's a lot of organizations, the ones that are getting it right are the ones that are tapping into their HR teams and really
Yeah.
working together and actually leaning on what others are doing and finding out what things are working and what's not working so well. And people, I still feel that there's a lot of leaders that are still scared to reveal too much about
Ah,
what they're doing.
yeah,
For obvious reasons, they're a little bit more risk averse, which I totally
yeah.
understand. But um, I'm glad that in your experience, you have seen the value in actually sharing what is going on and not being afraid to do that. Because when you do, you can get some really good insight and some solutions to some of the challenges that you're facing right now. And I think it's going to take all of us to work together to really keep moving forward.
100%. 100%.
So, I mean, you have built a reputation for helping organizations create the spaces where people feel seen, they're valued, and they're supported throughout your journey and your career. From your perspective, what does it really take to build a resilient team? Because you touched on kind of that change management, that
Yeah,
transformation that a lot of organizations are going through right now. So they're
yeah.
going to be really leaning into what is working and what's not going to work. So for you, in your experience, what does it take to actually build a resilient team?
Oh, I love this question. And I think throughout the course of my career, I've been kind of leaned on as someone who builds resilient teams. I've worked through a lot of transformation, a lot of change, from creating internal talent acquisition teams to um, changing teams from insourcing to outsourcing to being the first DEI leader in a large organization. And so, what I found out is that leaders can inspire confidence and courage and purpose in their teams by focusing on resiliency. The rapid policy changes and economic uncertainty all create layers of complexity that we as leaders must navigate. And so, in my experience, it comes down, there are 7 traits, 7 keys to building a resilient team. And I won't go into all of them in detail, but the first one is resourcefulness. And it's all about knowing, like, and harnessing the strengths and building a culture of feedback and improvement. And then purpose and connectedness are very necessary. They are also tied together. They're necessary on their own, but once tied together, they can make organizations more successful. And then fourth is psychological safety. Psych safety is key, and promoting an environment where employees feel safe to take risks and give feedback and be themselves without fear of negative consequences. And then one thing that I see leaders struggle with, and I think this is something that leaders struggled with more about 3, 4, 5 years ago, but now organizations see this skill as a key skill, which is vulnerability.
Hmm.
Courageous leadership involves being vulnerable and empathetic, which fosters psychological safety. And then perseverance. Perseverance means um, being what it means, like being willing to face failures and setback, viewing them as essential steps in the journey. Anytime you look at a mistake or a setback and you've had lessons learned, like that's that growth mindset. That's perseverance coming through. And all resilient teams need that. And then last but not least, inclusion. And inclusion is not separate from resilience. It is like it's foundational. Diverse teams bring a richness of perspective that makes it more inherently easier for them to be adaptable. And then inclusion creates that crucial psychological safety that people need. So what's interesting is regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of the size of your organization, we are going through tumultuous times right now, and leaders need to know what does it take to build a resilient team. And so those are my 7 keys.
Oh, I love that. I love those 7 keys. Each one really shines a light on how we can really move forward. And they're not massive, huge, revelationary things, are they? These are things that we could easily put into practice from today, which I
Yeah.
love, with
Yeah.
intention. I think that's a key part as well, is that we need to be intentional about what the next steps we are going to be taking. And I think those key things that you've really highlighted are some really great ones. So I love that. Um, what would you say is kind of an overall mindset that leaders and individual contributors, actually also as well, should really have when it comes to ensuring that we can really thrive in this era of change?
You know, I've seen there's 2 things that come to mind with that question. The first is storytelling. Like, everyone has a story, and you never know what someone or what an organization is going through until you hear the story. We all make up stories in our head, be it bias that comes in or whatever it is, but understanding the story. The story is, compelling aspects of why you're doing what you're doing or why you are where you are and what values drive you to do what you do. So organizations that really focus on storytelling, I think, and understanding that the humans that are a part of their organizations each bring with them a story. And so that's one thing I think leaders need to understand. And the second is purpose. Right now, um, through as we go through tumultuous times, and be it the administration change in the US or be it the global destabilization that is happening, people need to know what their why is, and they need to connect to something that drives them. And I've figured out throughout the course of my career what my purpose is. And my purpose has really been focused on creating safe places where people can be their whole best selves, because when they are free to do that, then they invent more, they participate more, they engage more, they help the organization meet their business objectives, thus getting an organization from where they are to where they want to be. So I really think and those things are like, if you do them with intention, I'm not saying you need to go out and invest $2 million into a talent strategy today. What I'm saying is use the skills that you already have, use the team that's already in place, and focus on storytelling and purpose during these tumultuous times.
Oh, I love that. So you touched on like how you was able to reach your purpose, and kind of it's clear for you in your mind exactly what that is. What would you say for those that are listening today that might not are still unsure of that purpose? How,
Yeah.
or what kind of, if you're looking back, right? So lessons learned, if you could tell yourself kind of a few years prior, what would you change to get you to know your purpose a little bit more quicker, or to get that clarity?
Oh, I love that. There's 2 things that come to mind that help me understand my purpose. Actually, there's 3. The first is my background, my personal background. I grew up in foster care, and between the ages of 7 to 17, I lived with 6 different families and in 4 group homes. What I've figured out throughout my HR career is how to embed that passion for foster youth and foster alumni into my career. And so earlier in 2005, I created an organization that placed emancipated foster youth into permanent jobs. And at the time, I was a recruiter. So placing people in jobs is what I did. And it gave me that fulfillment that I'm doing something, I'm using my skills, I'm using my what's been given to me to help the world be better. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind with understanding purpose. The second is very difficult decisions. Like there comes a point where in everyone's journey where there's a fork in the road and you decide, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? In 2020, before COVID, before the death of George Floyd, my organization asked me to take on the role of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And at the time, I was leading talent acquisition. We were having the conversations. I was thinking about it, thinking about it. And then George Floyd died. And then the summer of 2020 happened. The organization came back to me and said, Chela, we really need for you to take this role. And not only do you take the role, but we want you to let go of recruiting. So here I was with all of my everything that I had brought to HR business partner experience, recruiting experience, and now I was being asked to take on DE&I as the head of DE&I, the first executive in the role, and build a strategy for an organization that hadn't had a strategy prior to. And I was very nervous that I was given this role because of me being a Black woman. And I didn't want that to be why I had gotten the position. My mentor said to me, if not you, then who? And then she said to me, think about, and I had, now, as I mentioned, at this point I had about 20 years of HR experience, and I had taken the organization from an in-source model, from an outsourced recruiting model to an in-source model. I saved us the equivalent of over $10 million over 3 years. And I was highlighted as someone who builds relationships. The strategy that was needed for DE&I at the time was really understanding the ROI, the business dollars, as well as the relationships that would get the organization from where we were to our next step. And I didn't realize that I had all of those qualities and that is what was needed. So that decision really was a fork in the road. And what I realized was, Che, what impact do you want to make? And so understanding that my impact was more important than my pride, that is what drove me forward. And so I would say, and this is when I'm coaching others and talking about purpose and talking about passion, it really is understanding what your overall goal is, and then how do we get to that goal? And for me, I wanted to make an impact. And then the third thing that comes to mind with understanding purpose, I always said, like, title is agnostic. I could care less what title that I have. However, Natasha, when I let go of the chief diversity officer role at Starbucks and I let go of that title, it hurt. And I was like, I had to do some real self-reflection to understand what was it that was causing that pain. And for me, it was other people's perception of the loss of the title. And when I realized that was the hang up, it was other people's perception. And then I did some realizing that I've never moved in my life based off of other people's perceptions. So why would I move on my life now based off of that? And I had to go back to Che, what's your goal? And my goal was impact. And so I've launched a nonprofit organization called 1 Million Fosters that helps me make the impact that I want to make. And it doesn't need a title to go along with it.
Oh, that's so inspirational. I hope everyone listening is able to take even just a smidge of what you've just said. I mean, I'm lapping all of it up. But there's so many things that I want to highlight in what you said. This episode of All Inclusive is brought to you by Paradigm, the platform that helps companies build innovative, high performance workplaces for everyone. Anti diversity activism is currently surging in the mainstream, challenging corporate DEI programs. But the data tells a different story. Many companies remain committed to their efforts, finding ways to evolve and embed inclusion deeper into their business practices. That's why forward thinking leaders partner with Paradigm. Their latest report, The State of Culture and Inclusion, reveals how companies are navigating the current climate and driving real progress in 2025. Click the link in the description below to download your free report today. One key thing for me is what we've just ended on is that title, and I want to come back to the initiative that you've created as well, because I really want to dive in a little bit more on what that looks like. But with regards to what you've mentioned on that title and that feeling of loss when did step back from Starbucks, I think so many leaders are in such a very similar position to that right now, because unfortunately the way that things have gone right now, especially in the US, a lot of organizations are stepping back with their commitments, and that has involved that a lot of DEI leaders have unfortunately lost their jobs, and they're navigating what their next step should be. So I'm so glad that in this conversation we've been able to touch on what purpose actually is, because I think there's a lot of people that are questioning what theirs is, but also that element of the title. Like, let's be honest, I mean, yes, it is great to have that fancy title, but in all honesty, from what the work that I've been doing, there's very, as soon as you meet someone who's in like a senior leadership position, you expect and you assume, oh my gosh, they're gonna know this and this. They're so amazing. And then when you actually meet them, sometimes it's very disappointing. And so you should never sell yourself short. Just because you do not have a title does not mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're less capable than the next person. So I'm so glad that you were able to come to that realization, and you're pushing forward with purpose and passion, and what really means, what it really means to you, right? And you want to follow in with impact, which I think hopefully a lot more people will be able to do. That's definitely something that, in summary, like I think I essentially did when I decided to do this podcast. It was very much similar situation, that fork in the road, where I was like, okay, do I stay in this corporate job in financial services, which is good benefits, stable pay? I kind of know what the job is. I can kind of do it in my sleep, so to speak. And it was like a job for life. Or do I explore something that means something to me, something that potentially could have an impact on so many people, and also on myself? It's a learning journey, and I feel like life's too short. Okay, like, don't get me wrong, I know we all got bills to pay, but there is a way forward for you to still be able to follow your purpose and passion and live a great, comfortable life. You've just got to find those kinks, and hopefully this conversation helps you along your way.
Have you been able to feel that you've been able to make an impact with the podcast?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think I always forget how many people listen. So I just do the content, right? So, and I'm very much led by like the relationships and meeting new people, and I'm on a learning journey with this. So if there's something that I don't know, I'm curious, I'm going to ask questions, and I just go on the fact that hopefully there's going to be someone else out there that also wants to know and wants an answer to this question too, right? And in doing that, it has made me realize that actually a lot of people have questions and have trouble being able to access the information. It's not readily accessible as much as we think. In the era of AI and tech, you would assume so, but actually some people are finding it difficult. Even when you're using ChatGPT, it's like you need to make sure you write the right prompts for it to really give you the information that you need. And so That's what I'm finding. And I love when people message me and say, like, I listened to this particular podcast and I loved this note. I've taken this away and I've applied it to my team, and then this has happened. And so those behind the scenes things, yeah, that's really special for me. So yeah, that keeps me going.
I've had so many people where I'm like, you have to listen to the All Inclusive podcast. Like, if you haven't heard Natasha speak, and I love the curiosity that you bring to the podcast, which I know that I never have to prep too much because the conversation is just going to lead from one good thing to the next. So thank you, Natasha.
No, thank you. I mean, you're a great guest. So it's easy. But so, you did mention the 1 million Fosters initiative. So I really, really want to dive into that because I think it's absolutely incredible. So do tell us a little bit more about that. What inspired it? What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, I grew up in foster care and living with that many families and moving that much, like change wasn't a choice. It was my reality. And you learn to adopt quickly and find strength in unexpected places. But the most resilient moments for me weren't about bouncing back. It was about purpose and connection for real. Like it was about finding my people, knowing I wasn't alone, building trust. So my initiative that I just launched, 1 Million Fosters, is my mission to meet, mentor, and build community with adults who experience foster care as youth like myself. Natasha, whenever I meet anyone in foster care, they as an adult, they always say it, yeah, like under their breath, yeah, I was in foster care. And it took me years of therapy as well as a storytelling coach to get comfortable sharing that I grew up in foster care. Even like saying that I grew up in foster care, it elicits immediate sweat from my body. And I know that there's like the stigma of you grew up in care, and so there's this shame that goes behind it. And I feel like we should say it like with our chest. We should scream it from the rooftops. Like I have overcome a lot to get to where I am at right now. And that resiliency, that independence, that fierce stick to itiveness, that ability to find resources and to use resources, to ask for help. All of that is what like leads us as former fosters to be successful adults. And so my mission is to empower adults who experience foster care by providing transformative life and career coaching, as well as helping them foster personal growth, independence, and long-term well-being. So we've launched a podcast. It actually I'm doing the podcast now, but it launches in June. So in the month of May, we're going to put out little snippets of the podcast to get people interested. And what I love about the podcast is the individuals that we're interviewing are everyday people. This is, for example, one of our guests is a pastor. His story is amazing. His mother left him at the age of 5 at a Greyhound bus station. He is now a father of 5, a pastor, an entrepreneur, and a poet. And I can't wait for the world to hear his story and be empowered by the resilience that he shows. And then another one of our guests is a 20-year-old. She's a current foster, but she's in college. And so she entered into foster care at the age of 6, emancipated out at 18, is in college. To go from foster care to college is really hard. And then to be a successful college student, what amazes me is everything that I went through as a foster youth, the feeling of being inadequate, the feeling of having to be perfect, the not knowing where my siblings were, not knowing where my birth family was, all of that is still like those who are in foster care today are still dealing with those same systemic issues. And the career coaching that my company provides helps them use their resiliency and not bounce back, because it's not about the bounce. It's about the community. It's about the resources. It's about the confidence that is instilled in them when they hear from a total stranger, I am proud of you. I am proud of who you are. I am lucky to know you, and I can't wait to see the amazing things that you will accomplish. And what inspires me about the podcast and 1 Million Fosters is the impact that it will have on people in foster care and people who are struggling in their everyday lives, people who maybe lost a job and need a boost of inspiration from somebody that went through something similar, or someone who may be dealing with grief because they lost a parent or lost a loved one. And they're coming to the 1 Million Fosters podcast to listen to a story of empowerment and inspiration. I think that the stories of fosters are going to help empower and heal. And then one of the things that I see as success for the podcast or for the organization is for us to be a talent market for employers. I imagine going through being a CEO, going through a transformation, or an HR team going through transformation, and you need talent that's been coached, vetted, ready to go. Come to 1 Million Fosters, because we have talent from anywhere from entry level retail to executives in entertainment and arts. And I see us being that alumni and that talent market for employers. So thank you for letting me talk about the organization.
No, thank you for sharing. That's absolutely phenomenal. I'm actually lost for words. I don't even know what to say. It's so good. It's really incredible that you're doing this. And I can totally see the connection to your personal story, your journey. You're really utilizing the skills and experience that you have gained in kind of the corporate world, so to speak, and really intertwining it with your own personal experiences in your journey, and helping others in the community that you came from in foster care, which is awesome. And I'm so glad that you are able to sit here proudly and say that you grew up in foster care, because it is nothing to be ashamed of at all. And I know that that does carry the narrative of struggle when people talk about, oh, in foster care, and there's like a stigma, but it's in everything that you said. For me, when someone tells me that they've grown up in foster care, yes, okay, I assume, okay, you may well have struggled, but also for me it means that, wow, like, you've got that resilience, you've got the drive, you've got the energy, the push to keep going throughout any sort of barriers that you face. You're willing to knock them down and continue fighting forward, which I think is a trait that not many people have, and really is a phenomenal one. You've touched in terms of the success of 1 million and what your 1 Million Fosters initiative is, and this is that talent pool element. So what do you think organizations and society overall are often overlooking when it comes to this sort of community and this sort of talent?
Yeah. And, we've talked about the narrative, and I've seen that narrative firsthand. The narrative is often, it focuses on struggle and hardship. And I was just talking to a former foster, and one of the things that she said is, when I was in foster care, I didn't see anybody at the age of 19 being successful or 20 being successful. I was 14, 15 years old, and they were telling me about all of the fosters who ended up homeless or who ended up incarcerated. What's often overlooked is the incredible resilience, the strength, the untapped potential that many of us carry. Organizations and society tend to miss out on how important it is to recognize and nurture that potential. And in my opinion, support, a lot of people say there are so many resources available for foster youth, and there's a lot of, if you're between the age of birth to like 16, there is a lot. But when you turn 18, getting from adolescence to adulthood, some people don't know how to open up bank accounts or like when I went to college, I didn't even know that your parents are supposed to go to college with you. Like I didn't know orientation meant more than just me. And so when I say we need to support isn't just about addressing issues. It's about creating opportunities for growth, mentorship, and genuine inclusion. In my opinion, when organizations invest in understanding individual stories and provide equitable access to development and leadership, they unlock the talents that might otherwise go unnoticed. And it's not just for fosters. Like organizations have a responsibility to help develop and grow talent within their organizations. And former fosters, like we are curious by nature. We aspire to see the positive. We are optimistic. We have this innate ability to see when bad things are going to happen. And then, like, okay, how do I move or pivot and maneuver? We develop teams. We are empathetic. We're often um, the ones who will do the most for an organization or for our team and employees. And I think when organizations take that, when they invest in and create opportunities, is when they will see the untapped potential of not only former fosters, but many from underserved communities who are looking for their next big break or their next bid, or trying to figure out, hey, I have these skills as a foster, I'm fiercely independent. I have stick to itiveness. I can research. I've overcome all these obstacles. How do I take those skills and then make them work for me in corporate America? And those are the things that we're coaching our fosters on today. But I'm not the only one that can do this. Yes, I have the lived experience and I can connect with fosters in a way that not a lot of people do. And I hear that from them, which is why I love doing what I do. But allies can also do this work. Allies can um, create opportunities, can destigmatize the shame that goes with being a former foster, can open their arms, their minds, their hearts, and create equitable access for all of us.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. So how can companies, leaders, and individuals actually get involved and support the 1 Million Fosters initiative?
Yes. So May is National Foster Care Month. And my ask of companies, organizations is to donate, invest. One of the things that I keep hearing from former fosters is nonprofit organizations are the lifeline of support. In our current economy, in our current administration, nonprofits, their budgets are getting hit. And we need corporations, employees, allies. We need people to donate. Um, 1 Million Fosters is a 501(c)(3), so please donate to the organization. We are launching our podcast in June. And if you do a Google search or whatever browser you use and just search 1 Million Fosters, you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. And also, if you are a foster and you are someone that has come from the foster community, do reach out to Chela because you could be the next guest on the podcast.
Yes, yes. I want to hear your story. I want to connect with you. I want to understand what makes you tick. I want to understand what gives you the glow. And so, yes, if you are a former foster, regardless of where you are in your career, we offer free executive coaching.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, if you, just before we wrap up, because this conversation has been absolutely amazing, I knew it would be. But if you could go back and speak to your younger self in foster care, knowing everything that you know now, what would you say to her?
Yeah, that's a good one. What's funny is I ask people that question, and you should never ask a question you're not prepared to answer yourself. So I've thought about this a lot, and I would say to like younger Che that there is success through the cloud. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There are people who will pour into you and will see your light and will help you shine. There is a place for you in this world. When I was younger, I didn't think that was the case. I went to family. I didn't have like my birthdays weren't celebrated. And so I didn't feel like there was a place that I could call my own or even a corner that I could go into and just be. And I want to tell her that not only is there a place for you to be, but you've created spaces for so many people to be themselves and for so many people to tell their stories and for so many people to just show up as who they are. And the love that Chela shows is reciprocated not only to me, but to others who reap the benefits of coming in contact. And so I love that part.
No, I love everything that you've just said. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely incredible. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Shayla, for being so open and transparent with us today in this conversation. We've touched on some really personal stuff, and I'm so glad that you're able to share this with us, and hopefully it can help a lot of people that are listening today too, along their journeys. So finally, just before you do leave us, and this is the last thing I'm gonna ask, last question. What gives you hope right now, both in the DEI space and also with the mission that you have with 1 million fosters?
Oh, I love that. You know, community, humanity, and the willingness to listen. That I believe those three things are really what is going to help us overcome what we're going through right now. And it's going to be the community aspect of it is really like because we're stronger together. We just are, regardless of our race, identity, ethnicity, sexual orientation. Community is important. And when you find your people, when you find those who can pour into you, or you find where you can get your cup filled, be it podcasts like this, or 1 million fosters, or going to work every day and being the light that you are, like community is what's going to move us forward.
Shayla, once again, thank you so much for joining us today on the All Inclusive podcast. It's been great having you a second time. I feel like there's definitely going to have to be a third.
I love it.
For sure. Congratulations on 1 million Fosters, the podcast, the YouTube channel. I'm rooting for you so much. Keep soaring, keep doing such amazing, impactful work. You're making such a difference. And until we speak again, Shayla, I can't wait.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been so fun talking to you.